Happy afternoon. Happy Sunday afternoon. This is Countertop Commander if you're joining the stream. And yeah, magic. That's what I do. Um, let's see. So, Sundays are my day for doing some beginner stuff, and I want to periodically do some deck building. Normally, I play a few different decks that are sort of beginner, kind of teaching how to play Magic. I thought actually mixing it up a little bit and doing some deck building here and there might be good. And I do have a number of decks that I could probably I could stand to work on at times, and this is one of them. And I want to be able to use this for an upcoming game at some point. So I thought maybe I would go ahead and peek into it and see if we couldn't make any progress on this. Especially because this is one of the few 5-color legendary dragons that I haven't built around yet, or at least the ones that I have access to. And then on Wednesday and Thursday are the streams that I do to kind of, well, I play whatever decks that I want to, and so it can be goofy stuff or themed or semi-serious or anything like that, but it'll have a little bit less teaching to it, showing all the steps and doing all of the things kind of stuff. So yeah, let's go and get started. Niv Mizzet Reborn is the legendary creature we're going to try to build around today, and this one's a tricky one. So Niv Mizzet Reborn, he's actually, let me hang on just a moment. Let me see if I can't do something real quick. Put Niv Mizzet up on the screen to make it easier to see. So let's do this and show it. Yeah, there we go. I can do these things. I have the power. Okay. So he is a 5-cost 6/6 dragon. He requires one of each color of mana to be able to cast. Thus the 5-color statement. He has flying, and when Niv Mizzet Reborn enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each colored pair, choose a card that's exactly those colors from among them. Put the chosen cards into your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Or in a random order. I'm sorry, I can actually read, I promise. So the idea for this guy is that there are 10 different 2-color combinations. And when he comes into play, you look at the top 10 cards of your library, and for each color pair, you can take one of those cards and put into your hand, but it has to be exactly a color pair, and you can't repeat color pair. So, like if this top one right here, so black blue, if there were 5 different black blue cards in the top 10 cards of your library, then you could only pick one of those. So you couldn't pick all of them. And also, if there's a 3-color card, let's say this top card was, instead of blue and black, it was actually blue, black, green, then you couldn't pick it because it's 3 different colors. You need exactly 2-color pairs. Well, I'm saying pairs, kind of redundant in that case, but so sort of mechanically, Niv Mizzet Reborn has a lot of potential, because being able to pay 5 mana to get a 6/6 flyer and potentially, like if you're really, really lucky, draw 10 cards, that's a massive swing in your direction. So we definitely want to try to maximize that power, but that means that we have to play a deck that's mostly multicolor. And the thing is that I already have a legendary dragon deck, which is all all multicolored cards. It literally has it has 0 multicolored or monocolored cards in it, meaning like this stuff over here is monocolored, and we'll get to this here in a little bit. But so it's a 2-part problem where mechanically we want to try to maximize this guy's ability as much as we can, but then the other factor that's involved in it is that I don't necessarily want to just rebuild the same deck that I already have. So I want to try to use different cards if I can. There's basically one particular way that we are going to do that. And I also didn't want to necessarily just play a dragon deck that was just only the 2-color dragons, because we have other 5-color legendary dragon decks that have that. And so the ones that I actually have, let me do this real quick. So Ramos Dragon Engine, that's one of them that I have. He's a 5-color because of you can see there's in the mana cost, or in his ability in the text box there, he has remove 5 colors from Ramos and add 2 of each color of mana. So we have that. We also have, let's see, we also have this guy right here who is heading a legendary dragon deck. So the intent was to try to do all legendary cards in it, or at least all legendary dragons in it. Then we have a deck for Scion of the Ur-Dragon, and that one is abilities. It's like ability specific. So the intent there being that there's a bunch of creatures that care about ability words, and Scion of the Ur-Dragons can search our library and find those very quickly. So it can make for an interesting deck, but for now I'm going to go back here, and then we're going to close. Well, I guess I can leave this up for a little bit. So we have that going for us. That's part of what we're going to, the direction that we're going to do. But I was looking, and I'd seen a deck build that, and maybe I'll try to link it somewhere. But somebody did a build with Niv Mizzet Reborn that had cards that I had been kind of wanting to use and hadn't ever found a place for, and wasn't sure how I was going to use them. And I've been really wanting to use them because I've had single copies of these cards for quite some time. And one of them is this card right here, Living End. So as you can tell, this card does not have it doesn't have a mana cost in its box up here. It's cast entirely using the Suspend ability, and all it does is it essentially flips the battlefield so that everything that's alive becomes dead and everything that's dead becomes alive. So there's that one, and then the other one that I really have been wanting to use is this one, which is exactly the same, Hypergenesis, and it allows you to play a bunch of cards from your... essentially lets everybody be able to play all of the creatures and enchantments and artifacts and lands from their hand for free. The problem, of course, with these cards is that you have to rely on the Suspend ability, and if you have to rely on the Suspend ability, then people know when it's coming. They can see it from afar off, sort of thing. But there's been the tried and true method for playing these cards really quickly is, especially because there's only 2 of them, so you have to find them as well as cast them. So that adds more and more cards. But if you use the ability that's called Cascade, then you could easily find these cards and be able to cast them. So that's what that deck, which was much more tuned than whatever we're doing today. That person had a very tuned version of this, and we're just going to put together what we can from the cards that we own. So our intent is to essentially make a sort of combo deck. It's not going to be a very good combo deck, but it's going to be a combo deck, and it's going to be very different. It's going to play differently than all of the other 5-color decks that I have. So we're going to try to take advantage of these 2 cards, which fit very nicely in Niv Mizzet's ability, because the Cascade cards that we'll use are all 2-color cards. So we'll be able to pick them up with Niv Mizzet. And then the other thing about it is that because of Niv Mizzet's ability, we'll be stacked, or potentially we'll be stacked with really, really strong creatures. And so both of these cards put strong creature, or can can put really strong creatures into play for free. So we're going to use Niv-Mizzet to basically go, okay, here we go. We'll draw a bunch of cards, like 7 cards, and then we'll cascade into Hypergenesis and put all of those cards into our hand, or from our hand onto the battlefield. That's what we're going to try to do. To help out with that, we're going to, the other part of our strategy here, and again, this is kind of following the same direction that this other deck was doing, and that's, we'll be using these 2 cards, Astral Slide and Astral Drift. So they basically have, whenever you cycle a card, then you can exile a creature and return it back to its owner's control at the end of the next turn. So we will have some cycling cards in there, and essentially we'll use these 2 cards to try to blink in and out Niv-Mizzet Reborn and get multiple of its activations in a short amount of time. And hopefully that will also help us drive us into getting out the Hypergenesis and the Living End stuff. And the only other monocolored card that's going to be in this deck most likely is this Mizzix's Mastery. I don't know that I'm saying that right, but even still, Mizzix's Mastery allows you to cast an instant or sorcery from your graveyard for free, like without paying its mana cost. So if we ever do sort of have to discard our Hypergenesis or Living End, and it's sitting in our graveyard and we need to do something about it, then hopefully this card will allow us to cast that spell for free, because that's the other. So like with Hypergenesis and Living End, we need things to say cast without paying its mana cost, because the 2 of them don't have a mana cost. So that's how we're going to take advantage of it. And then, I mean, we can start getting into sort of looking at the cards here. So we want to try to be kind of even with how we're building this deck in terms of each of the cards that are in like in each guild. So we're going to try to get the same number from each of them if we can. So we start with 100 cards in the deck. We have to have exactly 100 cards. When we split this, it's good to have about 2/3 of your deck be land. So that's why we have 40 to 60 here to try to make it so that it's to try to hit about there with it. And I know that's a little bit more than 2/3, but we are going to be playing spells, like our entire deck, other than the Hypergenesis and Living End. All of the other cards in our deck are going to be converted mana cost 3 or more, and we'll see why that is a little bit later. So we do want to try to stick very closely to the 40 land, especially because we're also not going to have very much ramp. So we're going to want to regularly hit our land drops if we possibly can, especially because if we get mana flooded, that's never going to hurt us, because it means that we can cast, we're guaranteed to cast Niv-Mizzet, and as long as Niv-Mizzet doesn't get countered every single time we play him, we're going to get his activation each time, and that's going to draw us into other cards that we can play. So we're going to have 60 non-lane cards. That's why I wrote that here, to try to help remind us of what we're trying to hit with our cards. So if we have 60 non-lane cards and we have 10 guilds, so there's going to be 6 cards per guild, essentially. But it's not really 60, because one of that 60 is our commander, right? So it'd be more like 5 guilds with 6 cards and 1 guild with 5. But then we also do have these 5 cards here. So most likely what we're aiming for is, we're just going to say here, that was me explaining all of that leading up to how we're going to try to hit all of our guilds, 6 guilds with 5 cards in them. So we're going to try to, out of the cards that I pulled out, we're going to try to hit that where we, all 10. Why am I doing this? Is that, no wait, 6, 4. So I'm stupid. 6 guilds with 5 cards, 4 guilds with 6. That's what we need to do. I can count, I swear. So we'll have to decide which guilds are going to have less cards in them, and it may be possible that we don't have enough cards for each guild. And then in that case, that'll help alleviate or fix what we're doing. So I did already kind of separate these piles into sort of color combinations here. So let's go ahead and work that out real quick. Yeah, and see, is that color combination or red blue doesn't have a lot of cards in it. Actually, I thought I think I have more than that. We may be a little mixed up here. These are all red white, so those for sure. Red green. Oh, and I do have 2 Yafi Mayas. Let's go and take out one of those. That's easy. Oh, there we go. Humpty Dumpty Dumpty Dum. Blue, white. Black, white. Oh. Went a little too far. Black, white. Red, black. Yep. Slowly getting there. I'm gonna set these right there. Black, green. That's one that doesn't have too many cards in it. Here is white, green. Yep. And then here's our blue, green. So we have some piles that are a lot bigger than other ones, than this one too. And then some smaller ones, like right here, we only have 4 cards for Golgari, and we may not even have this many ultimately. But we also don't have too many out of black and white. So we'll have to think about if all of these cards are cards that we want. Let's see. Yeah, I think we can work with this. So let's go ahead and let's just go through these one at a time and try to pick out what cards are really worth our time and which cards are not. So I'm just going to start with Dimir, which is this one right here. And we will try to get all of these piles down to just a few cards. Probably to, like I said, well, I guess, let's see. Let's get them all down to 6 cards that we really like, and then go from there. So we have some creatures, some enchantments here, instant or sorcery. We definitely want creatures, but we need to see what kinds of creatures we have and if they're any good. Yeah, so instant or sorcery. We have a ton of creatures. Okay, so for sure, the Jessian zombies are one that we're going to absolutely have. We know that this is going to be one of them for sure, and that's because it has island cycling and swamp cycling. So in a pinch, we can use it to grab a land that we're missing, like a land type that we're missing. And at the best, it's going to activate our Astral Slide / Astral Drift. So we do want to make sure that we have that card. Let's see. So we have 5 cards left in this. Let's see. Oh, and here's another cycler card, and this one is even better probably because its effect is draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand, then discard a card for each card drawn that way. So it's a cycler, and it's a thing that can help us set up Living End if we need to. We have a Cascade card, so I think we really want to have that card. And now we're kind of running low on possibilities here. We need 3 more cards to pick. So I think all of the rest of the cards we want to pick are creatures. I think these cards are cards that we're going to say no to for sure. So from there, it's a question of what is sort of our best creature cards that we have. And I think that Vela the Nightclad is going to be really strong because of her ability. It gives all of our other creatures Intimidate, which that should be creatures you control can't be blocked except by creatures that share a color with it. So, like, if we had a red-green creature, then only red and or green creatures can block that particular creature, as long as we have Vela out. So, even though we're 5 color and each of the creatures we're going to be attacking with will have 2 colors, it can still potentially be really good. And its second ability, where whenever it or another creature you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. So I think that's going to be really strong as well. Let me think. Arami of the Dead Tide. I don't know that this is going to be really strong. Let's see. It seems like it. Well, I don't. That's. Well. The. Man, that can be such a really strong card. That's the problem. So it's Arami of the Dead Tide. I was thinking I might just go ahead and get rid of it. Because it's like you tap it to exile cards from your graveyard equal to the number of opponents you have, and then target creature card in your graveyard gains Encore until end of turn. The Encore cost is equal to its mana cost, and Encore, all that means is that you create a copy of the creature for each opponent that you have, and then you'll sacrifice those copies at the end of the turn. But if we were to, say, have 3 opponents, and we did tap Arami, exiled 3 cards, and it just so happened that our Niv-Mizzet was dead, we could bring Niv-Mizzet back, except we would make 3 copies of it. We would have 3 copies of it, so we would get 3 activations out of Niv-Mizzet just for exiling 1 card, or just for exiling 3 cards out of our graveyard. And that would put Niv-Mizzet back into our command zone where we could do something more with it. So, and Cathari Remnant is also a Cascade card. We may have to we'll have to think about this. We may end up having more cards than I want in this section. Glen Alondra Liege, I want to be good, and I pulled it out just in case, but I was kind of feeling like maybe it was a card that we weren't going to play. Because it does give other blue creatures and other black creatures we control get +1/+1, but by itself, it isn't a really strong card, and it's not going to deal much damage. And we're going to have a bunch of creatures out for its effect to be really strong. Like, it does give +2/+2 to Niv-Mizzet, but I'm afraid that relying too heavily on Niv-Mizzet to do everything in this deck would be a really bad choice on our part. Sire of Stagnation, I think, is also in the same boat. It can be really good, but it would only be really good if its effect actually ramped us as well as exiled cards. So I think that I want to go ahead and say that we don't need just random extra draw from that. Yuriko. I would also like you, and I think Yuriko could deal a lot of damage, but we're not really set up to take advantage of her, so I'm going to go ahead and say no to her. Let's, for now, go ahead and leave Slumgar. We're going to leave Silent Blade Omi. I'm kind of questionable about the rest of these, so I know that this is one more card than we talked about, but I want to see what happens with it. So we're going to say those no, and then these are sort of on reserve. I think that if we have enough spots open, I do want to consider them. So I'm going to set them off on a different pile. Okay, let's look at Rakdos here. So we do have, we're going to have a same kind of thing here. We'll have many more probably creatures than we will anything else. But we can go ahead and make some quick choices here. This is another cycler. This is the cycler. This is Demonic Dread is the Cascade card of Cascade cards. We absolutely need that one. Let's see. Underworld Cerberus, this may be the place for Underworld Cerberus. I'm kind of thinking that I want to try to make it work in this deck. I don't know if it's going to work, so it's a 5-cost, 6/6 creature. It can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. And cards in graveyards can't be the target of spells or abilities, but then when it dies, exile it, and each player returns all creature cards from his or her graveyard to his or her hand. So that could be good. Depending, we may be able to make use of that because we are going to be putting a lot of cards in our graveyard and possibly having being able to make use of a lot of cards in our hand. So I am curious to see how that goes. Let me think. See, I am kind of tempted to say Olivia mobilized for war, only because she allows us to discard cards and give things haste when we need to, but then again, let me think. See, and here's my problem. I'm wondering if Torrent of Souls does that better for us, but then again, we're not... Torrent of Souls isn't something that's actually... Oh, this is a hard one. Malfegor seems like it could be really good if we can force a lot of discard. But we may not be wanting to discard our entire hand when we're trying to play all of it all at once. But then again, Malfegor could set us up for a really good living end section if we wanted to. Basically wipe the battlefield, more or less play Malfegor, force everybody to sacrifice all their creatures, and then, I guess, that doesn't work, because he'd sacrifice all of their creatures, and we would have to Living End would bring them all back. That doesn't make any sense. That may not be a good one. I didn't want to necessarily play just dragons, but I think that we're going to have to play some dragons, and I'm going to say this one as well. So these cards I'm going to set to the side. I don't know that any of them are ones that we'll want to have. So let's just keep going. We're going to try to blaze through this real quick because this is going to take a while. We're only 3 through 7. So blue-green. Let's see. Give us some good cards here. We need some good cards. Okay, so Sharding Agent is one that we definitely want to have. Because that's another 3-cost Cascade. So Cascade. I didn't explain it earlier. The reason why we care about 3-cost Cascade cards that are 2 colors especially is that when Cascade happens, you reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card that costs less. And you can cast it for free, and then everything that you revealed, whether or not, even the one that you cast, or the one that you could cast, if you choose not to cast it, then all of the revealed cards get put on the bottom of your library in a random order. And so basically what we're doing is we're building a deck where everything except for these 2 cards cost 3 or more mana. So when you play this card, you reveal your whole deck until you get to one of these 2 cards. So we absolutely need that card. Bring to Light is a really good card because this one will allow us to cast a creature, instant, or sorcery card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of colors of mana spent to cast it. So we can use this to basically search through our library and immediately play one of those as well. So I think that's a really good card. But let me think about the rest of this. I mean, this is an exile effect. A removal is what I mean. Let's see. Grazing Kelpie is actually an interesting card. I think this is one that we want to keep as well in our deck because its effect is it's a 4-cost 2/3 creature. It has pay a blue or a green, sacrifice it to put a card from our graveyard onto the bottom of our library, or somebody else's library, but it's almost certainly going to be ours. And then when it dies, it has persist. So if it didn't have a -1/-1 counter, it comes back into play. So we can use this to regain use of our Hypergenesis or Living End, so we can keep getting more uses out of it even after we cast it. So I do want to have that in our pocket as something that we can do. Karuga, draw a card for each other permanent you control to convert a mana cost 3 or greater. See, we can't do this as our companion. I think that this is a card that we want to say no to. Let's see. Simic Sky Swallower is a really big blue-green creature. I think we want a really big blue-green creature. Experiment Kraj can be really, really good. Being able to pump up the power of a creature, but also gain abilities of other creatures. And I think Murkfiend Liege actually is a really good card because this one, as opposed to it was a fairy. The other Liege that we looked at gave +1/+1 for green creatures and blue creatures, but this one also untaps all of our blue and green creatures during each other player's untap step, so we can keep reusing creatures if we need to. So I think these three are the ones that we want. Edric and Prime Speaker Zingana. Sorry, this one I think we're just going to toss. These are both really good cards, but I think that their entire intent is to draw cards, and Prime Speaker Zingana can get to a really big power. But I am also afraid of us drawing out our deck because we're already playing Niv Mizzet. So I think we're going to say no to both of these. So let's look at Golgari, so black-green next. And I'm just going to preemptively say there's only 4 cards here. We're gonna say yeah to all 4 since we're a little bit low on that color combination. Okay, so now we got to a big pile. We have a ton of cards in this color combination. So maybe we separate this by function. So sort of big, so we'll do, well, this is Cycler. I wonder if we have the other Cycler in here. Maybe we don't. Okay. So it doesn't look like it. Let's see. So we'll say this is the cycling and like combo or related cards. We'll say this one is removal, this one is big creatures, and this one is just kind of other stuff. Pump effects and things like that. That could be a big creature. That's that. This is just random junk here. Oh, this has a different effect. Different effects. Oh, and we have 2 of these Dromokas. I don't know. Between the 2 of these, I guess the foil one. I think this art is a little bit better, but we'll just go with the foil one. We do have ramp. This is not really removal, so it's kind of just a big creature. Big creature, big creature, big creature, other thing. Glare of Subdual, let's say no. We'll just say no on that one. We absolutely have to have this one, so that's one. We're not really doing anything else other than just using this to destroy a random artifact or enchantment, but we don't really have any of those effects in the deck, so I think we're going to want to say yes on that one. So we're down to big creatures and helping cards, and I think that the helping card we definitely want to keep is Feyburrow Elder. Let's see. Collective Blessing seems like it could be really strong. I'm kind of stuck because most of these cards are really good. I think that these three are probably cards that we can get rid of. My problem here is that we have a ramp card, a pump effect for every creature, effects that regenerate or save creatures if we need to, and then we have all of these like really strong cards. Because I think the Knight of New Alara is a card that we just absolutely want to have. Each other multicolored creature you control gets +1/+1 for each of its colors, so that's incredibly strong. Autothon Worm. Autochthon Worm, I think is how you say it. A 9/14 with trample. I think we really want that. Let's see. Because see, like, Dromoka, whenever a dragon you control attacks bolster 2, that can be really, really good. Juniper Order Ranger makes our creatures bigger, but only by 1, so maybe that's not good. And Wayfaring Temple, okay, so Wayfaring Temple, we want to be good, but we're not going to be able to use its populate ability too much. You and humans you control have hexproof. That's probably not going to be that good. I mean, having hexproof should be good, but it's not going to be as like good enough to warrant including in this deck when we have other things. Enduring Scale Lord only really pumps itself, so we're kind of stuck with some of these other ones down here. Wow, we need 4 cards out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We definitely want this one, so 3 more cards here. I think these 2 cards are absolute yeses. Man. They're all really good. I do want the ability to revive our creatures, but I think it has to go into the pile of cards that we're unsure about. Stick them over there for later as fillers if we need to. We just need more creatures because we kind of need more creatures because Living End is what we really want. So I'll put Collective Blessing over there. We just need 1 more card. I'm going to say Archon of Valor's Reach. I don't know if that's necessarily the smartest play there, but it gets us up to 6 cards, and these ones will just stick over to the side. I don't like making these decisions, but since I'm doing this as a stream, I have to make decisions. I can't sit here forever. Let's look over at Boros, which is red-white. We have a few different effects here. A lot of effects here. Mostly the creatures, and I think that let's see. Heartwarming Redemption is a no. Leave to Chance. I think that we're going to say no to as well. I was thinking about that card in terms of the reason. So the reason for these 2 cards, the reason I'm getting rid of them is because Heartwarming Redemption. Oh, why can't I say that name today? Discard all the cards in your hand, then draw that many cards +1. You gain life equal to the number of cards in your hand. That's a good card, but like I said, our whole goal here is to try to be able to do Niv Mizzet as much as we can, and this card doesn't, like, this card will just draw us more cards on top of what Niv Mizzet will already do. So I don't know that this one is necessarily good. Like, it could set us up for a really strong Living End, but it could also draw us into Living End and put us in trouble. Leave, I'm getting rid of. It does kind of a similar thing as Heartwarming Redemption, or at least that's sort of its point, but the Leave is, I need to actually read cards, and this one is 2 convert a mana cost, so can't use it. So we're just down to a ton of creatures. So basically we're just going to get 6 strong creatures here. Aurelia and Gisela are definite ones. We absolutely want those. Let's see here. So Zirda, the Dawnwaker, if we had an ability that we cared about reducing the cost of, then maybe we would keep this, but I'm not sure that we are going to. We haven't really run into very many creatures so far, and we're about halfway through. So I'm going to say that let's set it to the side as still a possibility, but I don't think it's one that we're going to use. Flamekin Zealot, I think, is a card that we want because when it comes into play, it gives our creatures +1/+1 in haste. So it's going to be really strong with stuff like Living End, Hypergenesis. We can just immediately, when we put Flamekin Zealot into play, it'll give all of our big creatures haste, so we can immediately attack. I'm kind of tempted to Resolute Blade Master because it gives all of our creatures double strike. Let's see. I think Balefire Liege we're going to say no to. It gives it's another +1/+1 to red and white creatures, but its other abilities require us to cast spells with red or white. Spells that are red or white. And we will do that with Niv Mizzet, but we won't really do it otherwise reliably. So I don't know that its effect is really that good. Let's see. So Nobilis of War seems like it's probably a really strong contender. I think these are the strong contenders down here. Let's see. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, target creature you control gains double strike and lifelink until end of turn. This may be a really strong card that we consider. Let's see. Razia seems like the other card, so I'm going to say no to these two. Like, they don't have bad abilities or something like that, but they're not too strong, and otherwise they cost like a ton of mana for not being too strong, so I'm not sure that that's really that good. Whereas opposed to Razia, she has a ridiculously high cost, but she is a flying vigilance haste at 6/3, so I think that's actually going to be really good for combat. It's just a matter of, because I think double strike and +2/+0 to attacking creatures we control is really important. So we need one more card between these two. So it's a question of, does giving a creature double strike and lifelink each turn once each of our turns trumps 6/3 flying vigilance haste? And I'm wondering if maybe we just go with Razia for now, and we'll put Bruce Tarl, Boorish Herder off to the side, off to the possible side, or still possible side. So we'll set that there. Now we have this. So Orsov, which we don't have too many cards here. So it will be a question of how many good cards. I think Primeval's Glorious Rebirth is a card that we don't really need because... So we had 7 cards here. We really only need to get rid of one. Primeval's Glorious Rebirth only it returns creatures from the graveyard, but it only returns legendary creatures, and we actually have been picking out a lot of non-legendary creatures. So I think that card can go, which leaves us with a bunch of cards that we almost certainly will want to play. Kaya as a Planeswalker can allow us to blink Niv Mizzet. Ashen Rider exiles cards when it comes into play or dies. Triad of the Fates can allow us to blink Niv Mizzet as well. Merciless Eviction is a really, really strong removal card. Angel of Despair is a creature that destroys permanents when it comes into play. And then Debtor's Knell is a really big enchantment, but each of our upkeeps allows us to get a creature from our graveyard to the battlefield. So this is almost like a backup card if Hypergenesis and Living End don't really work out as well as we want for ourselves. So it's slow, but being able to return a creature each turn is really, really good. Where did this guy come from? I'm not sure, but it would have been a no. That's been sitting there for quite some time now, and I just haven't noticed because because I expected to get rid of it. Whoops. Okay, so we are at Azorius, which is blue-white. So let's keep doing what we've been doing here, and I think we are going to be a little stuck with this one as well because we have a lot of different cards that we can do here. So I'm going to prematurely say, I'm going to say Aether Mage's Touch is a card I want to get rid of. So it reveals, it's an instant that you can reveal the top 4 cards of your library, put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield, and then essentially it gains an ability that returns it back to your hand, and then the rest of the cards get put onto the bottom of your library. So yeah, it can be good for getting out one of these strong creatures, but I don't know that it plays into our ability, what we're doing really well. So here we are. We have a bunch of this stuff, and Ardent Plea is the one that we absolutely have to have. It's a 3-cost cascade effect. Stormcaller's Boon seems like a card I really want to have. It's a little bit higher on the converted mana cost with a cascade, but it's an enchantment that allows us to one time have our creatures we control gain flying until end of turn. So this is a card that's something that we can do with it is we can put it out with Hypergenesis because Hypergenesis puts out creatures, artifacts, enchantments, and lands. So we could put this into play with Hypergenesis, and then if we have the haste for that turn, we can sacrifice Stormcaller's Boon to give all of our creatures flying, so that we can potentially be able to get over a bunch of other creatures. I kind of want to say no to Glassdusk Hulk. It's a cycler, but it doesn't do land cycling, and I think that I'd rather have the land cycling versus the not land cycling. So it comes down to basic land cycling or these 2 land cycling, and but Defender, that's the tough one there. We're not going to have very many basic lands, so I think let's go ahead and get rid of this migratory route. I don't want to get rid of too many of the cyclers, but we do have a lot of cyclers already picked out. And I want to be able to get some actually strong creatures, especially when we have such a really good lineup here. Let's see. Metamai the Ageless. I feel like this one is one that we really, really want. See, there's balancing being able to gain advantage over something by its ability and not being a particularly strong card is sucky, because Metamai is one that gains us an extra turn, and it's a flying 4/4, so it's nothing to necessarily scoff at. Getting an extra turn is going to be really strong. But then we have a ton of... This one makes it hard for them to target our creatures with flying. This one makes it impossible for them to counter Niv-Mizzet. This one taps down, or basically makes 2 cards useless every time it attacks. This one can blink Niv-Mizzet. This one can blink Niv-Mizzet. This one basically makes everything that's 4 or less that our opponents control not be able to do anything. So it's there's a bunch of cards that are really, really strong. And this one is also a dragon that whenever it attacks, tap target non-land permanent an opponent controls, and that permanent doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So it's these are all really, really good effects. But are they good enough? I don't know. I'm kind of shooting from the hip here. So I think I want to try, let's see, I want to try Archon of the Triumvirate. I think Asperia draws us a bunch more cards that we don't necessarily need to do. Let's see. I think these are too niche because they're not protecting the cards that really matter, and that's the Hypergenesis and the Living End. So, well, actually, no, it does. Instant Sorcery and Dragons can't be countered by spells or abilities. That's a tough one. I think that one deserves to go into the other group of if we have space. See if I do Brago and King Eternal. I mean, Brago and Metamai. I can do crazy shenanigans, and Brago at least can blink Niv-Mizzet, so maybe that's a yes. But then we're kind of left with these ones. Let's say Soul Herder. We'll say no. I want, well, I don't know. In the other pile. In the other pile. I'll figure it out one of these days. And see, I want both of these, honestly. I want all of those cards. Why can't I make good choices? Okay. Here we go. This is 6 cards right here. And they're all pretty good cards. Although Mercurial Chemister, I'm not sure that does as much as I want it to do. And Brutaclad Telcor Engineer, I think also doesn't really do what we want it to do, because we're not making too many creature tokens. Well, too many tokens in general. So I'm wondering if maybe we can gain some spots by removing those two. And maybe that's incorrect, but it feels kind of correct. So Dax Duplicate becomes a copy of another creature when it comes into play, but it gains haste and dethrone. So I think those are good cards. Is it Chronarch? It returns an instant or sorcery card from our graveyard to our hand, so we can use it to return a Cascade spell or the Hypergenesis or Living End. Niv-Mizzet, Draco Genius, and Firemind both are pretty strong cards in their own right. So, and they draw single cards kind of when we want them to. So I think those work out. So now this is the last guild. That was Izzet. This is Gruul. And we have a decent number of cards here. So let's see. The enchantment that grants haste seems like a really good one. And this Planeswalker that also gains haste, that seems like a good one. We absolutely need Violent Outburst. This is a cycling card. Do we have anything else? Now, we do have another ramp card here that, I don't know. See, I think at this point I'm kind of like, maybe this deck is just going to be a deck that doesn't have any ramp. Like, one ramp card. See, Ruach Thard doesn't seem like a card I really, really want. Although, I don't know, once I get him out, I won't necessarily care about taking the damage. Maybe he's going to help me, like, really hone in on damage with stuff. I think Gruul Warchant is one that I'm going to get rid of. Sorry, I'm just holding all of these cards, and that wasn't necessarily my intent. Let's see. So, Gruul Rage Beast seems like a card I might want, but my problem with him is that it forces fighting, and I don't necessarily want to be forced to fight in every aspect, you know what I mean? I think Omnath, Locus of Rage, really works in our favor here. Because it makes 5/5s as we get lands onto the battlefield, and then when they die, they deal 3 damage to something. So it could be last bits of damage that we need. Target creature you control gains trample. It seems like it could be really good. Oh, we have 2 Savage Ventmaws. Okay, well, let's get rid of one. We don't need two up here. Do we need this mana from the dragon? What are we going to do with this mana? It seems like we could do something with the mana, but we don't have any other... Like, the dragon that we almost certainly would use this ability with, we aren't playing. So I'm wondering if maybe it doesn't make any sense to play it in this deck. Bloodbraid Elf is another Cascade card, but I'm afraid of having too many Cascade cards at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and put that away. So we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we do have 6 cards over here. Are any of these cards like absolutely must-haves? Rubble Hulk seems like it could be a really good card to almost one-shot somebody with Niv-Mizzet Reborn. But at the same time, it's such a limited application, I'm not sure that that really helps us. We do have Dragon Lair Spider, so if we got Dragon Lair Spider and Brutaclad, I mean, that would be a crazy combination. Hey, 2 shots, how's it going? I just looked over and saw you type. What's going on? I'm just trying to deck build here. Trying to build something for Niv-Mizzet Reborn. I'm sure I'm making a terrible deck, but I tend to make terrible decks at the beginning and then just slowly refine them after I see how bad they are in when they're actually in a game. I don't normally build combo decks, and I'm only kind of like halfway paying attention to this. Oh, okay. Yeah, casual is pretty much what I play just because, I don't know, I got into Commander a long time ago, when everything was still very casual and not competitive. This could definitely become a competitive deck I say, don't misunderstand. I don't mean like 9 or a 10 competitive deck. I mean more like a 7 or an 8, maybe an 8, more like a 7. So, but that's still kind of upper end, is what I would think. And I play more like, I don't know, I play probably more like 4 or 5 generally. I do have some closer to maybe 6 level decks. I do have the cards to play higher level, but I kind of, after playing so much competitive play, I kind of got tired of it, and Commander was the one that brought me into playing more casually and just hanging out and doing nonsense. Trying to build something that makes no sense whatsoever, and playing against everybody else's decks that don't make any sense. Yeah, 8 or 9. Yeah, I mean, the fastest that they can go without CEDH. I mean, that's still kind of CEDH, right? But that's fair. I mean, like I said, I don't think there's anything against building that way. It's just not something that I necessarily go for. So is it a group that meets in person? Do you like have a game store that you go to, or is it like a friends group that you all meet at somebody's house and play? Or even further, do you do, what is it, Cockatrice or something else like that? I used to do Cockatrice a long time ago, but that was like after they started having trouble with Wizards and not really sure, like they weren't really sure if Wizards was going to allow them to do anything. Specifically because they were using all their card images. Oh, Spell Table, okay, that's cool. I do play Spell Table every so often. Actually, I played last night. I played with some people at the Nexus, actually, MTG Nexus. So I've known some of those people for quite some time now. Well, I guess I should say I know the guy who, or I've known the person who kind of started the Nexus for quite a while now, and that was mainly in the original Commander forums. You know, like when they have a new website now, but like they used to have an old website that was a forum, and I was on there a lot, but that website's dead. I mean, it's literally killed the server that it was run on, died. Let me think. I don't know that I'm not like terribly impressed with a lot of these cards. I think I'm gonna go ahead and take them out. So let's see. What are we looking at here? So go ahead and erase this. We don't need any of this information anymore. Because we already built to it. Let's see, let's get a fresh one here. So with Gruul, we have 6 cards, so that's a 0. We have only 4 cards for Izzet, so we're up 2 from there. Let's see, we have 6 cards there, and 6 cards here, 6 cards here. Queen Marchesa stacks, nice. I do actually have a Queen Marchesa deck. It's not a stacks deck, which probably isn't surprising considering I play casually. I have tried stacks decks before. I get the concept for them, but I could never make them work competitively. I'm terrible. I have really terrible luck with competitive play. That's partially why I stopped doing it. I would go to tournaments and I would be like, I would win 6 games in a row, and then I'd lose the last one and I'd be in 10th place and I'd get none of the prize support. That would be my luck, is basically what would happen. So we are, let's see, 7. So we're actually down 1 here. Okay. So that's not good. Okay. Yeah, it's not too hard to get really easy combos when we are looking for them. So my Queen Marchesa stack is actually a damage control deck. So it uses a bunch of the old core creatures that have that ability to redirect damage from themselves to other creatures. So there's a lot of that kind of shenanigans in it, and it's just been it could easily have infinite combos in it, due to stuff like Mog Maniac and Spite Mare and the stuff that, like, when they get damage, they deal damage to other stuff. Because it's easy to, like, give Indestructible and then have them deal essentially infinite damage to themselves and then kill another player off. I was trying to think of the other one. I can't think of the other one in that trio. Anyway, so I did have some of that stuff in my Queen deck. But then I ended up taking out the infinite combos just because it wasn't as fun. And being able to play like really old cards. Yeah. Classic cards. Mind Sensor and Opposition Agent. Yep. And Stranglehold, yeah. No, doing the damage control stuff allows me to play old cards. Let me see if I can search it up real quick. Yeah, here we go. Simulacrum. I don't know if you've ever seen that card, but it's not a terribly good card, but it's fun to redirect damage with a card that nobody's ever seen before. Okay, let me think. So, I actually need to pull 3 more cards, and I still won't have... Ouch, sucks. That sucks. Let's see. Removal and reanimation. I'm going to take out both of these cards. That puts us +2. That's good. No, not very competitive at all. That doesn't mean that there aren't competitive cards in that deck. I think that deck has 3... it has at least one of the OG dual lands that I own. It has a number of the really good planeswalkers in it. Duretti? I'm thinking of that word correctly. Yeah, Duretti and Genius, Iconoclast. He can be really, really strong when you have the ability to utilize it really well. I think I have a Grim Tutor in that deck. So I do have some good cards in it, but... Nice. So the most powerful deck that I probably ever built was an Edric deck way back in the day when Edric was still pretty fresh. And not like super, super fresh, but I don't think they had very many commander decks out at the time. So there was a tournament that was being played at a local game store. And this was, oh my gosh, it was like 6 years ago or something like that. I don't know, some crazy amount of time ago. And that particular game store was trying to do a competition that was very close to using the sort of, I don't know what they call it now, but they used to call it like French EDH one-on-one rules. And I took a look at their rules. Yeah, maybe more like 9 or 10 years ago. I don't know now. So what was it? Crap. Oh, I took a look at their rules and I was like, guys, you know that Edric is... They've banned Edric for quite some time now. Yeah, they call it dual commander. They may call it more dual commander now. At the time, they just said French rules, and sometimes they would be saying dual commander at the time. But it wasn't that way when I was playing, or, like when this tournament happened. So I told them, like, hey, look, Edric, they've already banned Edric in this rule set. You should really ban Edric from your competition. And they were like, no. We're not going to ban Edric. Edric is fine. It'll be okay. And I was like, your whole goal for putting together this tournament was to try to like get new players to come to your game store. And you're going to ruin it by having a couple of jerks bring Edric decks and totally stomp everybody else easily. So when they refused, what I did was I built basically the best version of an Edric deck that you could build at the time, because I had all the cards to be able to build it. I mean, like Gaia's Cradle and the dual lands and Jace the Mind Sculptor and like everything. I had all of those cards, and I was like, here's the best deck. I'm going to literally refuse to participate. I'm going to refuse to participate in this competition. Well, see, if it was about trying to get the strongest players possible, then that would be one thing. But they weren't trying to like incite the best players in the area. They were trying to incite all of the new players. They were trying to encourage people that had never played Commander before to come and play Commander. And they're not going to really, those newer players not going to know how to build good decks. And so it's kind of mean-spirited to insist that new players go up against people that know how to play. Like, it wouldn't make for a good game for you guys, like for your group, if somebody who didn't know how to play showed up. You would just stomp their face in. And there'd be no point, like it's an exercise in futility. So that was the problem with it. It's not that it's a problem to be competitive. It's a problem to force new players to try to be competitive out of the gate. And that's exactly what happened. First place player was an Edric deck. Second place was, I think, another Edric deck. And then the third place was a Kaalia deck. And they were all people that took advantage of the rules to basically game the system, essentially. And I don't like that kind of behavior. That kind of behavior is just, like I said, it's just mean-spirited. If it was a level playing field, it's okay. It doesn't matter to me in that case, right? I see. Well, I'm just letting you know what my opinion on that is. It's mean-spirited. Let's see. I do need one more card out of this. So I need to see what I have here. Let me think. Let me think about this. I'm not sure. There's one of these piles that has too many cards. Oh, yeah, it's this one. No, yeah, it's this one. This one I think I have to pull a card out of. And I think that it's going to be the Deny Reality. Okay. So I think that puts us at least even here. Let's count and make sure that I'm not over 60 cards. Real fast. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, 60 cards exactly. That's what I'm looking for. At least with starting out, anyway. That needs to go over there. Let me do this real quick. I want to see what my mana curve looks like. It's awful. It's going to be awful, but I just kind of accept that that's going to be the case here. It's the lowest, actually. So we can move some of this over. See, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 2, see, 6, 3, oof, 5, 6, 6. 4, 8. One of these days I'll get done with this. So to explain, I'm explaining this not necessarily because you need to know two shots, but this is for later, for going back through these videos. The reason I'm doing this, the reason that I do it with decks, is to get a sense of how high my mana costs are when playing, and it's pretty obvious that this is a really high mana curve, because at the low end we're at 3 here and we're going up to 8. This is going to be a rather slow deck for most cases, and of course the reason for that, the reason that we're okay with that, is because we're trying to take advantage of the Cascade effect into Hypergenesis and Living End. Oh, way at the end over there. So our goal is that we will be able to readily get that Cascade effect and plow through a bunch of these cards, especially with Niv-Mizzet drawing us into a bunch of cards. So let's see. We do have Cascade here and here. So we have a potential of hitting a bunch of these, but at least the ones that we will hit, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 of them will be cards that that will cascade directly into Hypergenesis. So that's at least somewhat good. It's not great, but it's okay. Yeah, so the purpose of this, being able to see the converted mana cost tells you how quick your deck is going to move. If you're really high up here, then it's likely that your deck is really, really slow. If all of your cards are down here, and most of the time you want the majority of your cards to kind of be right here, kind of like sort of the 2.5 to 3.5 range for most cases, unless you're playing competitive, of course, and that's going to be completely different. It could be literally anything, because a combo deck will have a pretty wacky converted mana, like a mana curve. But in general decks, more, like anything below competitive, you're going to want to try to aim for right here. You'll still have some cards underneath here, 1s and 2 cost cards, but any more than like 3.5, you're going to be going really, really slow. If you're going to be, like at the 2.5 range or lower, or I guess actually, I'm sorry, it's right here, not right here, right here. Because I'm thinking of it in terms of this being 1 and 2 or something like that, and it's not. This is 3 right here to tell you how slow this deck is. But like I said, the purpose of it, of course, is because we're cascading into these. So everything does have to be above 3, essentially. Yeah, so little ramp. This is going to be such a slow deck, but it's only the start. It's going to improve over time. Going to definitely improve. I'm going to try to take a peek later at the list that this idea is based off of when I saw it, and see how much different they have their stuff, because I'm pretty sure that they're vastly different. But when I saw it, they had first envisioned the idea, but I recall that they've made a ton of progress on it, and I just don't have all of the cards that they do. Mainly because this is like, whatever, my 6th or 7th 5-color deck at this point. So, yeah, it's not... these are the leftovers, rather than, like building from a list and buying that specific list and trying to play it out that way. I'm trying to build it without looking at what they did and see if I can get away with something that actually works, or at least works well enough that I'm okay with it. So I think that I'm just going to have to leave it as is. This is at least a good start, and I can leave the other cards that I pulled aside, because I have a number of cards on the side over here that I can slot in and try later if I need to, if something isn't working at all. So I guess at this point the only other thing that I have left is to look at lands. The lands for builds like this are going to be really easy because we're so evenly divided by all of the color combinations. Because we're, like, other than black green is the only combination that had less than 5 cards. I guess there was one that had 4. I think that was Izzet. Golgari definitely only had 2 cards in it. But otherwise, we're pretty even across the board. So all of our lands are pretty much going to be even as well. We're going to just try to pick things that that kind of give us an even color spread and go from there. So we have stuff like these lands that are old Visions search lands, and they pull either a swamp or not a swamp. They each pull one of 2 different basic land type. So we do have the snow duels over here that we can grab with these if we decide to go that route. The problem that we're going to run into with building with this, especially with being much more casual and not playing a full set of every dual land ever printed, is that we're going to have to end up using a bunch of cards that come into play tapped. So we're going to have to try to not do that too much. So let's go and get out another one of these. We have 40 lands to work with. We're going to want at least 5 of them to be basic. It's always good to have at least some basics in your deck. So we have 35 left, so that's what we're going to aim for. We may change that to 2 of each basic land type, just so that we're not playing with too many comes into play tapped, because most of these are actually going to come into play tapped, unfortunately. So we do have a bunch of the bounce lands here. Oh, well, that's not a bounce land, that's another search land. The bounce lands are ones that come into play and then they tap for 2 mana, but you have to return a land to your hand to be able to play it. Or, well, I mean, it comes into play and you have to return a land, basically. So we have a number of lands that are basically going to come into play tapped, but they tap for 3 different colors of mana. And one of them is not Bosk Banneret. I can't think of the name now. Murmuring Bosk. That's what it is. It's I have a Japanese version of Murmuring Bosk, so I'm not remembering it right now. And we do have a dual. We had a free Temple Garden that we can use. We also have these lands that you pay 1 and they produce 2 different colors of mana. So they can be good for filtering stuff a little bit. So then we have a couple of other lands that tap for 2 different colors of mana, but not too. Let's see. There's Golgari Rot Farm stuff. Let's see. We do have 2 lands that tap for any color mana, Gemstone Mine and Crucible of the Spirit Dragon, so that's good. We have some other bounce lands here, I guess. Let's see. I'm guessing that these 2 are, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so this makes up the other 10. I don't know that we want any of those lands, honestly. We do have some cycling lands, which go into our strategy for Astral Slide on Niv-Mizzet. But I'm not sure how many of those are actually going to be all that great. Man, I don't like any of these comes into play tapped cards. I think I'm just going to go and say no to all of those. Some more cycling lands. And I don't know why I pulled this. This probably got swallowed up when I was grabbing other lands. There's no reason that should be in here. Let's see. It does seem like a way to get really even spread of lands. I'm not sure. Those might fill in spots, but I'm kind of tempted to just put them to the side. Let's see. I'm wondering if putting one of each of the snow dual lands is what we want to do to get our good spread of colors here, and then make use of these tapped lands. It's not great whatsoever. It's not a great way to do this, but it'll still work for our purposes. And this deck is not very quick anyway, so maybe we can get away with it. So you get one of each of these out. Wait, no. Oh no, wait, there is Rimewood Falls. That's not right. Let's see. We have Volatile. Okay, Woodland Chasm? Yes, that's the one we're missing. I was like, wait a second, we're missing one. These aren't organized anymore. Okay. So, and Krosan Verge actually plays really well into that as well, because it doesn't search for basic forests and plains. So I think all of those are actually, the combination of these cards might be really good. Now, Warping, let's get rid of that. We're going to get rid of, we're just going to preemptively say all of these. So how many lands do we have right now? So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So 17 more is what we're looking for. So if we did, I said 18, let's see, Let me count that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So if we did these 28, 29, 30, that leaves us 5 lands left. So maybe we do just a few of these. I'm trying to think of. We do something like. This one. I think I do have the white version of the cycling land somewhere else, but I think for now this may actually work. I said this is 30. We need 5 more. So maybe I go and find the other another one of these cycling lands so that we can get one of each color, and that will support the other strategy that we have. I mean, the strategy for flickering Niv-Mizzet here. And that brings us all the way up to all of our land. These stay to the side. Like I said, slow, but maybe that's how we do it. We could also just get rid of the... Maybe we get rid of these. I want to try that out. I want to try 10 basic lands, 2 of each color, and then all of these lands. And I think that actually makes at least a basis for a deck for now. And that means that maybe I can play this on stream sometime in the future and see how it turned out. Well, there we go. Still around 2 shots. Have I filled your ear with enough of my Garbly-Gook? Let's see. Because I think that may be about it for today. I wasn't going to spend too long doing this because of what today is, being Mother's Day and everything. So I wasn't going to spend too long. I don't have a game or anything to start at this point since, like I said, I typically 2 shots. So typically the Sundays, what I do is for sort of showing how to play Magic, and then Wednesdays and Thursdays I choose one of those days each week to play sort of a normal game. So that's why we're doing deck building today, is just kind of as to give a sense for how the process can go for building a deck. This one was kind of off and silly because it's not a deck that it's a deck that I had an idea about how it might look, but I've done a couple of other deck building ones where I already had a really solid idea of what I was going to choose ahead of time. So it was a little bit easier to talk about the choices and show why I was making those decisions for those decks. But I don't know. Okay, well, thank you for coming in anyway. I appreciate it. I appreciate giving me a look. And I hope you have a good, when you get to play with your group next time. I hope you have a good time playing. You can tell them about how uncompetitive I am. Anyway, I think that's about it. So have a great Sunday, and I will see you all next time.